do get people that are properly get hooked on it. I have a very good client. He's a very good collector, and I've essentially lost him as a client because I've trained him to do his own research, and now that's all he does.
Great business model.
I'm killing it.
This is The Bigger Picture, an inside look at the businesses that make the art world work and the stories behind the people that shape them. This show is brought to you by Arcata, the leading due diligence network specifically built for the art market and trusted by over 450 members. To understand how Arcata can help you comply and succeed with challenging regulations, go to arcata.com. Today we're joined by Angelina Giovani, co-founder of the Flynn and Giovani Provenance research agency and founder of the online training platform Art Market Academy. So thank you for joining us today. And I'm going to start off with the question we always ask our guests, which is what drew you to the art world in the first place, whether it's been something you've always been interested in?
Hello, thank you for having me. It's nice to see you. It's been a while. I wish I had some, grand romantic story about always wanting to be in the art world, but I actually didn't. I grew up thinking I was going to be a doctor, which is really far away from doing provenance research. I ended up in history of art quite serendipitously, actually. It was only meant to be one semester of art history. And then once I started the degree, I got really lucky because I had some of the most amazing professors I've ever met in my life. So I just found it impossible to walk away from it. And before I could say a word, I was running the society and organizing events and putting up talks. I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to stay. I'm going to be here long term.
Amazing to get your passion for the subject so early. I feel like a lot of people do many, many courses and try different subjects. So it's quite nice to be able to get that traction.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do have to put it down to the teaching quality that I had. I feel like a good professor can make or break your love for something. And I was extremely lucky, and I'm still in touch with my professors, and any chance I get, whenever I go to Athens, I'll try to meet them, or I'll pop by the university and say hi. I'm terribly fond of them, and I'm always grateful that, they instilled some very essential skills that I still, use day to day while I do research. So I was very lucky.
And then the actual provenance training side. So you started off with history of art more as a straight subject, didn't you? You moved on to the provenance research. Was that at the Legacy Institute, your first sort of real encounter with provenance?
Yeah, so I did history of art as a major and archaeology as a minor. And I wasn't quite sure where it was headed. I wasn't fully committed to going down the academic route, and then wasn't really terribly keen on going the commercial route either. So in 2013, I was actually just looking for some program to do in the middle of February that could take me a week away for a change of scenery. And I came across this, the training provenance workshop that was taking place at Zagreb at the time. And it was organized by HARP and the Shore Legacy Institute. And I applied. I knew nothing about it, and they were very kind. They were a bit like, why do you want to come? But I was genuinely interested. I knew absolutely nothing about it. And they kindly waived the tuition fee. And they gave me a hotel room that they kindly. So I just had to pay for the flight. And I had, a very enlightening week. It was really amazing to me how something that seemed to be such a big issue or a discipline in its own right had never come up during my education. I'd had meetings up till then with the career office and student advisory office at my university, and this had never come up as a sort of career path.
Wow. Okay.
So it was great. And then I went back and basically could not shut up about it. I was telling my professors where I'd been for a good week that I hadn't been at uni. And they were very supportive. We organized a massive conference shortly after. And it was basically at the time the first provenance conference in Athens. So what we thought was going to be like a small university conference ended up being covered by some of the biggest newspapers in the country. And we ended up having 300 people attend, which is not what we were expecting, given that, our history of art society is very small and we didn't really get enough grants or money from the university. So we literally had to bake sale for it.
That's so interesting. And then
it was great. I then met Dr. Christos Tsirianis, who I didn't know before, and he's a very famous figure, especially in Greece, because of his work with looted antiquities and the role that he's played. So I wrote him an email. I'd never met him before, and he said, "Yeah, I'll come." Great. So it all came together. And then, me and him have been in touch ever since. We're very close colleagues. We've worked together. We've taught courses together. So, yes, it all started from basically me trying to amuse myself outside of campus for a week.
It sounds like, you sort of get sparked interest in provenance, and then you realize that there's a great depth to the subject, a lot of work to be done. And then your next, educational step, I guess, is you do a master's but it's art market appraisal, is it? Was that always in your head with an idea of, because there wasn't a provenance degree or such at that point, that was like the closest you could do to develop those skills?
I wasn't quite sure how I was going to solidify my entry into sort of this path. I knew I wanted to come to London. I was very keen on coming to London, and I started looking into various professors and various degrees. And that's when I came across Tom Flynn's profile, who was on running the MA at Kingston. And he was the first person I actually communicated with, and
you met him there. That makes much more sense. Okay.
Yes, I handpicked him actually before I ever came to the UK, and it's, as the story goes, he's now my business partner, and we've been running the company for 9 years now.
Yeah, I saw that. It shocked me a bit.
I know, time has really flown by. But yes, I came to do my MA, and then Tom knew from day one that I was particularly concerned with provenance research. So no matter what assignment he gave us, I would find a way to make it about provenance research. And then after that, I worked for a family office advisory. Before that, I'd been working with ERR database. That was being funded at the time by the Shaw Legacy Institute, and it was a lot of database work basically, and desktop research, which was very formative. I mean, and it's very humbling spending day in and day out doing data entry and checking for typos to make sure everything is right, because if you have a typo, basically someone else might not be able to get the result that they're looking for.
I think that's the hassle of all stolen art databases.
Yeah. But it was great. I really enjoyed that. I was very grateful for that opportunity. And then I found a job for an art market advisory in Mayfair, which could be rather challenging. I think there's, in the secondary market, I didn't know anything about it at the time, but there was a lot of issues of, how do you deal with trains, and how do you deal with issues of provenance if most of the people involved don't really know what like a provenance risk is, the best ways to address them. And it was very challenging in a completely different way. So I was there for about a year and a half, I believe. And then I think I was in desperate need of some fresh air.
I think also because you clearly never had that desire, I'm not saying lack of interest, but desire to be in the commercial art market.
No.
That sort of experience, it's insightful, but not necessarily going to be a driving force.
No, it is very insightful, and you learn just as many things that you should do as you do things you should not do. Yeah. And I do think it's very valuable to get certain experience very early on. It does set you on the path of, this is right and this is wrong, and this is something I'm willing to do, and this is not something I'm willing to do. So I think, when we set out with Tom, he'd spent too long in academia, and many, many years ago, he was also a researcher, a journalist at the art newspaper. So, it came by quite serendipitously, actually. I rang Tom, I remember, to catch up and see, as I was moving jobs, to see what he's up to, and maybe he had heard of any opportunities or something that I could apply to. And then by the end of that call, we had formed a partnership.
That's so cool. And it's still going. Was it 2017? Have I got that right?
Yeah.
10 years ago.
Yeah, next year is going to be our 10th anniversary. So it's amazing. I mean, no person ever can ask for a better business partner. And I don't just say it because he's my business partner, but I can't remember us ever having a disagreement.
Well, don't say that on record, geez.
I mean, listen, I'm not going to jinx it. Even if I do,
It'll be too late for that.
Last about 10 minutes before we've resolved it. But yeah, it's been great. It's come a long way from how we started to how things run now.
And the market itself in that period has changed.
Oh, absolutely.
Exponentially. But I think even more than that, I think understanding of provenance and how it's considered in terms of importance within the market has changed quite a lot. Could you reflect on that a bit? I mean, you obviously entered the market as a partnership where there was obviously a growing awareness of provenance skills, but in terms of how the market regarded that piece of work, the sort of career path in it, how was it in 2017 and how do you feel things have moved or not?
There was quite a bit of resistance. I remember we set up and everything. And then we started reaching out to people to make them aware that we're available, that we know we're undertaking research. And a lot of the response was, "Oh, we don't have looted art," which I found quite funny because it was almost as if it had accusatory tones offering someone your service. So we very much had to kind of tiptoe around how you say it, to say, we're not actually actively looking for problems, but you have gaps in artwork, in ownership history, that if you fill, you will know for a fact whether you would ever be exposed to risk, how this can affect the value of the work, that the story you might have to tell is so much better. I mean, we've done so many pieces of work that artworks have come to us with 2 lines of provenance, 3, and we've sent them back with 12 lines of provenance in between. And it's not that anyone in the past had tried to, hide provenance or, it just badly documented. It just gone from hand to hand without anyone really looking into it properly, carefully. So a lot of provenance issues in the market are actually as a result of neglect rather than an active attempt from art market players to hide wrongdoing. I mean, that could have been primarily the case maybe in the 80s and the 90s. But it really genuinely does not seem to be the case nowadays.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that's a behavioural change? Do you think it's probably a combination of the two? Or do you think it's sort of like raised awareness? Or do you think it's increased regulation? Where do you think we're sitting?
I think it's a combination of everything and maybe an increased inevitability that one way or another you have to answer certain questions if you want your artwork to, if you want to sell it to an institution or if you want it to end up in a museum, you really don't get a say as to how much information is enough information just because you don't want to do more or pay for more research. So you do find that serious advisors and serious galleries and dealers, they will press on for answers. They will hire researchers. Sometimes they'll hire multiple researchers in different parts of the world to address different parts of provenance. And sometimes we do that for clients. I mean, there's times when a research case needs 3-4 people in different countries. It'd be great if we could all go to any country that, we had to for research, but
definitely push for that as a sector.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great, but ultimately you want to keep the cost down for the client and reduce time as well. So, if you have a local who's already sitting in an archive or a library and they can get that information for you and they can get paid, then they're the best person to do it. There's absolutely no need for someone explicitly to travel. You do get the odd collector who's like, you can't tell anyone about this ever. You have to go. And it's like, it's not that big a secret. I mean, no one would really care, but you do get the odd characters in the art world.
Another bit of transparency, the opposite of transparency in the market. I think part of that, though, provenance, as you say, I think it's been more professionalized because of services like yourselves. As you say, I think there's a growing awareness that there's an inevitability about these questions being asked. I think due diligence as a concept, the surrounding elements as well, it's not just provenance anymore. There's a lot more onus on sort of financial checks, let's say all the sanctions and stuff. Do you as a sector sort of sit with that general compliance development, or does it feel like you're almost treated more as like the academic skill set?
Yes, I mean, we were hoping that with the anti-money laundering regulations coming into play, that eventually some of that regulation might trickle down to provenance research, and it most certainly has not. It's still, I mean, if you wanted to sell a work of art that's 500 years old without a single line of provenance, you can. There's no one to stop you.
They're seen as quite distinct still, I guess. Yeah.
You can. And I do find it quite funny, for example, when you see auctions in California and they're selling something that's from 1490 with nothing under provenance. I'm like, well, it didn't walk itself. And didn't you ask the person who consigned it how they got it, at least? I mean, this this artwork is older than your country. Like, how did it get there? So there's absolutely no hard written rules about, how much provenance is enough provenance, how much due diligence you have done. I mean, as a standard now, everyone will get like an art loss register certificate because they're required to, but we always consider that as a first step in the research, not the last one, and not by any means an indication that you don't need to carry out any further research. So it's difficult. I don't think there's a great incentive, for example, especially as far as the auction houses are concerned, to disclose much more information. There's confidentiality clauses that I do think are a bit, that question, that phrase gets thrown around a lot, that, information cannot be shared due to ongoing confidentiality with the client, and the client's been dead for a century. And there just doesn't seem to be in theory, the will is there, but practically, in practice, I mean, we have gone multiple times to auction houses with evidence that something is looted. And we have not been able to get the information that we need on, for example, who consigned something in 1946.
I was hoping for a nice positive answer about how things had come leaps and bounds since.
This is not that kind of podcast.
Not that, okay. I'll try another question, don't worry. We've spoken a little bit about, I guess, you had like an academic background, but you're quite a practical application of that. As part of your career path, you have done a lot of, I think, education generally and training has been quite a core component of it. Was it simply a response to sort of demand from students that you set up the Art Market Academy? How did that sort of come about?
I think that was very much a product of COVID, and very much a product of, having been through the process of having to physically have to, take out the time and the expense to go somewhere physically to attend a course. And I just thought that, we're all confined at home. We can't go anywhere. And this is a skill set that is very much in high demand. So there should be a way to make it accessible to people. So that was the incentive. I worked on it for probably 3-4 months, putting it together. And it's been online for 3 years now. So all the content is pre-recorded. We've had over 120 students take the course.
Amazing.
It's amazing in the past years, from every single continent. And it's been incredible to see the range of people who take the course. It genuinely varies from university students to art market professionals to amateur collectors who have started collecting in their retirement, and they
That's
want
interesting. I mean, again, during the pandemic, we all took up.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I've met some incredible people, and I'm in touch with a lot of them quite regularly because they'll buy something, and everyone's, there's quite a niche of people who think that they're going to find a sleeper. So I have students who are always hunting the online sales and the auctions, and
Does anyone still go to car boots? That's where I pick up my.
I mean, I do get the funniest messages like, "Do you think this could be a Tintoretto?" I'm like, no. I mean, I don't take my word for it, but I would say, highly unlikely.
Keep everyone's curiosity going, though. It's lovely that there's that new wave of interest in the subject, art history generally, to be honest, regardless of if it's provenance. It's fundamentally research and fascination with the objects, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you do get people that are properly get hooked on it. I have a very good client. He's a very good collector. And I've essentially lost him as a client because I've trained him to do his own research. And now that's all he does.
Great business model.
I'm killing it. But I love it. I think people I think when you're genuinely enthusiastic and excited for something, it can become quite contagious. So once you give that research back to someone, I love seeing it,
It also feels a really natural step for a collector to become passionate about research, because collectors are passionate about it. They generally know more about the subject than anyone else. So it's a natural, logical step that they start supporting that research.
And I also feel that you ought to know how to do some due diligence steps. I mean, don't come and hire us to do database checks. Here's a list. Check it out. If there's a mystery that needs to be filled, or we need to identify archives or identify people involved. Okay, fine. We'll work on it. But it's really no appeal to me to check databases as a job.
And there's so much online now.
The essential ones are the starting point. So everyone who buys or sells or collects art, they should know how to check the databases that are either freely available or that you can pay a subscription for.
Yeah, of course, or you can contact them.
Yes, this has been one of the main issues with the art market. I find that, there's always been, the art market needs to do more research, and, art market players don't care. But, you get over and over, you get people criticizing the art market who've never really actively tried to educate the art market. It's very easy to say, oh, you've never done this, you've never done that. It's okay, tell me what I'm meant to be doing. It's very hard to guess.
And I think I'm looking at it more from a compliance view in general. I think particularly around the anti-money laundering regulations, for a long time, the message has been, no one's regulating this market, more needs to be done. And quite quickly when legislation comes out, trade representatives come back and say, we don't understand, what does this mean in practice? And there is a bit of a lack of guidance and a bit of confusing guidance around what's actually expected. And as you say, I think with things like provenance, there's not a tick box exercise where you can go through and tick it through. So that, not hand-holding, but that sort of supporting them and understanding what resources and what is sufficient due diligence is quite an important step.
It is. I mean, look, there's always a starting point that will not be the same for every genre or every category of art, but you always have a starting point. You have 1, 2, 3 things you must check, 1 to 3 places you must check in with. And if you are in the business of dealing art or collecting, you ought to know what they are. I mean, it's, ignorance is really not a good excuse nowadays. So if someone wanted to learn, there's ways for them to do so. So that was my main goal with the academy is, okay, I want to create an online environment that's dedicated to this. And at the end of it, you come out with a set of skills. So when people sign up, the course actually never expires. They don't have a limited amount of time to take the course. They don't lose access after a certain time. So the ability to take a course as many times as you need.
It's a resource, basically, isn't it? It's
absolutely. So you can go back anytime. And I have people who have taken the course the first year it launched, and they'll come back to me now because they've taken it again. And they have questions because they're trying to research something, and how would I go about it? So it's been great, and that's something you don't get in another program. You go sit, you're there for the duration, and then you have to only rely on your notes. and the course material. So I was really set on making the resource available just indefinitely.
That's a great idea. And I'm guessing that experience, as you say, during COVID, it's a tech-based platform. I sound like a granny here.
Yeah, that was an experience.
And your new venture, if we're allowed to talk about it, if you could use that, that's also another tech platform. But with the idea of activating sort of physical connections and research. So do you want to introduce your latest venture?
Yeah, I'd love to. To be honest, I never thought that part of my work would be so much related to technology. I'm not really a tech person per se, but I do like to fix a problem when I see one. Just I can't help myself. And from day one of doing research, it became very obvious that you cannot ever complete the research on your terms if the access to the material you need is not accessible to you. So if you need material that is, I don't know, in Argentina or in Moscow or anywhere in the world where you cannot just, go next day. So with Tom, we've built a network of researchers, colleagues, interns all over the world. We probably now have contacted over 25 countries. That if we needed to, activate for a project, we would know, we know so-and-so in Stockholm, we know this person in Denmark, we know this person in Greece. It's great. And then I thought, well, isn't that what everyone who does research, whether it is provenance research or any other research, needs? So the ability to find a person that is in physical proximity and has access to material that they need. So that's where the idea for Source came up a good 7 years ago. And I just didn't quite know how to go about it. And then in 2025, I thought, okay, this is if it's not happening this year, it's probably not going to happen. So I met with a brilliant team of developers. I told them my idea, and they loved it. So what Source does is sort of like Uber, but for information. So it allows you to go on the app and to post the details of the material you're looking for. And then the app will connect you with people who have access to that information, basically. So you can have a research assistant anywhere, anytime, and people get paid for their time. Which I can't wait for it to be live so I can use it for my own research. But since we launched the website and announced it, there's a pre-registration page on, it's called BeMySource.com. And the amount of people that have already pre-registered telling us where they need access to.
That's so interesting.
It's amazing. It's quite validating because like, okay, it's not just me who doesn't have access. The whole world is, struggling for access at a point in time where everything seems to just be accessible online.
Yeah.
And I think
what it tends to do is it tells you where something is and then you can't get to it. So it's just like a really frustrating dead end of like,
yeah, it's like, oh, great.
Here, but you can't get it. And you're like, oh, brilliant. Thanks.
Yeah. How's that helpful?
No, I'm really frustrated. How about, because the other thing I've often come across is I'm rubbish at languages. I have none other than English. And I often think, even if I get a document, I don't have the language skills to necessarily sort of interpret it and explore it.
Yeah.
Is that something you can mark up as when you're saying, I need access to the archive? Ideally, if someone's got the translation skills, that would be supportive.
So you can upload the work, the title, all the information that you need in the language that you need it. So basically, if you need a file from an archive in Spain, you should enter it in the original language that the archive holds it in.
This is so exciting. I'm going to be...
Because it will then connect you with people who have said that they live close to this archive or are researchers at this university who has access to this. So they will get notified on the request. So you don't need to translate anything to English. It just can be in the language that you need it in, because we're trying to match you with people who have access locally to the information you need. So we don't need to translate anything in English globally.
That's so exciting. I'm going to try and stop being a geek here now because we are coming to the end and I have got an important question to ask, but it does sound really exciting. We definitely want to keep
Yes,
updated with it.
you are on the list to get it as soon as it comes out.
I will be uploading all the frustrating dead ends I've got.
I know.
Honestly, I've just got a list of things that I can't find out. So as soon as I can get
the
some help, that'd be
developer
great.
asked me a few weeks ago, who is your ideal client? And I'm like, me. I'm my own ideal client.
I've got no further with all of this stuff, and now it's just haunting me that I can't find stuff out.
It is me.
I mean, that's the best place to start. They say to write about what you know, so maybe it's designed for problems you have.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We always have this final question around, we start off like, how did you get into the art market? And I guess a lot of the people listening are either starting out their career in the art world, or they're working in the sector and are thinking about where they might go next.
Mm.
Do you have any advice if you were starting out again or having a reroute of your career?
As in coming into the art world?
Or having a career in the art market, how to make it work?
I'd say that the reality of working in the art market is very different from what pop culture has presented to us, you know, for
very more glamorous.
Yes. No, I mean, it's a great, I've never had a different job in my life. And, you know, I've been doing research for, you know, the best part of 14 years now. And, you know, I do love my job. And I think ultimately what will keep you in your job long term is not, you know, because it's necessarily the best paid job you could get. But I think it's because you genuinely like to do it. You love doing it. And, you know, with research, there's days where you're in an absolute dead end. And sometimes it's weeks when you've made no progress. But then one day you do make progress and you do answer a question.
Sometimes it's years with no progress.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Decades even. But then when you finally solve something and, you know, when you sticking with it finally pays off, I just think makes it worth it. I think that everyone who comes into provenance research, they have a particular skill set. And they're the kind of people that are, you know, they love a good murder mystery and they're very nerdy in the best way possible. And, you know, they're the kind of people that very often get described as a dog with a bone. So, you know, having this inability to let things go or taking no for answer or just saying, I guess I can't solve this. Not once do I think I've ever heard anyone in provenance research, any of my colleagues say, yeah, I don't think we can solve this. Let's let it go. I think as long as, you know, you come into any industry for the right reasons and you sort of have your goals very set and, you know, you have your ethical and moral boundaries very clearly defined. It's a great place to work and you get to meet wonderful people, get to see wonderful art. I mean, the best part of my job sometimes is, you know, spending an hour alone in a room with an incredible masterpiece. And that's priceless to me. So yes, we do need more people in provenance research. I do hope that this year we'll get a lot more students with the academy. We've translated the course now in 16 or 17 languages. So it's a great resource. Writing new courses this year. It makes me very excited to see the variety and the number of people who are increasingly more interested in it.
I definitely think conversations like this will inspire more people as well. I think the more it's one of these subjects, the more you know about it, you get drawn in.
Oh, absolutely. We have a 500-piece reading list if anyone's interested.
Please don't send that to me. I've got my to-do list is so long. I definitely don't need to add that to it. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I know you've got a flight in a bit, so we really appreciate you taking the time out to speak to us.
Thank you. It's been so lovely seeing you and catching up.
Thank you for listening. You can follow and subscribe to The Bigger Picture wherever you get your podcasts. And to learn more about this episode or to reach out to us directly, please visit us at arcata.com.